without any trouble at all. Very few riders left. This is a select group, and it's good to see Levi is, just like you said, starting to get his legs, having good form. Another Banesto rider going up the road on the attack.
Yes, well, this one here is more likely to succeed, perhaps. This is Juan Mercado. He's been the young champion for Banesto in the previous years. We're waiting for a real big result from him. He's now the next attacker. Banesto, like Once, we say goodbye to them as race sponsors, team sponsors at the end of the season. We'll be sad to see them go. They've been around a long time in the sport and produced some wonderful results. And like Once, they want to go out with some great results in their last big tour.
Starting to look a bit precarious here for Roberto Heras, because most of his teammates have disappeared from this front part of the race right now. I just saw George Hincapie going off the back end of the group, so it's going to be left up to two men from US Postal. It's going to be Tricky Beltran and of course Roberto Heras himself. But I think once we get to the beginning of the Sierra de la Pandera, it's really going to be every man for himself, because the gradient there is unbelievable. We saw riders all over their machines last year just trying to keep forward motion going, and it's something that this man is not enjoying at all this afternoon. Started the day in 9th place in the overall classification, Dario Friga, but look, he's not giving up. He's just not responding, or not able to respond to the accelerations of the Spanish climbers, but he fights his way back into the race.
Yes, he's short of top-end speed there, but he's not going to let that bunch out of his side if he can avoid it. This rider's got a real fast tempo going at the moment as Oscar Sevilla now launches his attack, and that's why we believe that Kelme was softening the race up. He's now going, and this might cause a ripple.
It should cause a ripple. Unbelievable acceleration. This man had a very difficult start to the Vuelta a España, crashed and had a huge hematoma on the side of his hip, but since then he's got better and better every day, and he would certainly like to come out of the Vuelta with a win under his belt, and I think that's probably why we saw the big work being done by Kelme. Of course, they've got to look after Valverde, but Oscar Sevilla wants some glory out of this race too, and look at the way he dances on those pedals.
No, he's coming back to good form at last, Oscar Sevilla. Let's hope he has a good season next year. Terrific bike rider, only a youngster, baby face himself. I think that must have been the 15 kilometres to go, Banner. We've just gone under that, as we still, which means that we've still got 3 kilometres to the top of this climb before the plunge onto the Pradera. Nice little group getting themselves together, but not a move yet from Roberto Heras. He is waiting till the last moment, and it looks like 110% effort on the last climb of the day for him. And welcome back as we're watching a group of 5 riders here sprint for the points at the top of the Alto de los Vilares. Lyseca has already gone through. That's the clock counting now as the riders go over the top here. 27 seconds the gap. Now the breakaway is the King of the Mountains gets second points there, Cardenas, Daniel Atienza, Cuesta, 2 teammates from Cofidis, Mercado and Sevilla. That is the chase group. 27 seconds now behind Robert Lyseca. At the peloton, 40 seconds.
Not too far behind. In fact, they're only just 15 seconds behind the chase group. But right now, Roberto Lyseca flown the coop for the moment, riding a solo to the summit, to the bottom, I should say, of the Sierra de la Pandera. But once he gets there, it's going to be all change in the gear ratios, because that's when it really kicks up. They've got around about 2 kilometres now of respite before they get to the start of that road up to what is or used to be an old military base. And for the majority of the year, the road is actually closed down, and once you get up there, there are 1 or 2 disused military buildings. But the 2 riders who really want to do the most impressive ride this afternoon are Manuel Beltran of US Postal and of course Roberto Heras.
Well, these boys continuing to set the pace at the front of the group here. David Miller there in second place, as 5 riders are behind a single leader. Now, when the dust settles on the Vuelta a España and you're looking for something else to watch, don't forget to watch OLN at 10. That'll bring you the latest shows on the network. Monday through Wednesday, you can see the shows like Beach Ambush, Rigging Rides, Mysterious Encounters, and the Outdoor Outtakes. And the new lineup will begin on September the 29th at 10, of course. Now, the chance for the heart to catch up with the legs, because they're about 2.5 kilometres from the base of the Pandera, and then we climb. As I say, I hope the local mayor has remembered to open the gate. It's normally locked, nobody goes to the top, but right now it's 8.3 kilometres. Once we get up there, it takes us up now to 1,840 metres, and look at the average gradient, 6.4 with a max of 15%. Could change the race quite considerably here. Bob.
It looks as if the peloton led right now by Levi Leipheimer have caught up to some of the guys that were in the breakaway chasing Lyseka. They haven't caught Lyseka just yet, but big tempo now coming from the group. Here's Lyseka at the front of the bike race, closing in on the final kilometers. He has a very tenuous lead right now. That'll be 10 Ks to go till the end. Levi Leipheimer having a great day out here. He loves the Tour of Spain. He's finished on the podium before. That identified him as a top contender for these Grand Tours. He's had some bad luck since then, but right now doing everything he can to help his teammate Michael Rasmussen, who sits in the top 10 on GC and has already won a stage in the mountains. There's David Miller moving up on the outside. I think everybody in the front right now speaks pretty good English.
Yeah.
Good line. Yes, definitely very good line. They probably speak
I was trying to think of a
English.
line then to say about Levi, and I couldn't get one to mind.
Well, I'll tell you what, Levi is an incredible bike rider to bounce back, because I had a funny feeling over the first few Pyrenean stages of the Vuelta a España that he wasn't going to, in fact, get through the Vuelta a España this year, but he's hung tough. He's still in there. It's important for him to do well and ride with good condition towards the end of the season, because he needs to have a solid season next year if he's going to remain a candidate for a high finish in the overall classification of the Grand Tours. There's a big battle going on in this group behind right now, and everybody's not too worried about the position of Roberto Lyseka, who's a long way down in the overall classification. In fact, he's more than an hour and a half behind in the standings, but if he can get a stage victory at the Vuelta a España at the summit of a mountain, that will just wipe out all of the bad luck that he's had this season. In fact, he hasn't had a win to his credit so far, but amazing to see David Miller on the front here, obviously doing the team job here this afternoon. This man is hoping to ride well in the World Championships in a couple of weeks' time, when that's in Hamilton in Canada. And I think he probably would have taken a slight blow to his morale, Phil, because he thought he was going to win the time trials here very easily indeed, and he hasn't done that yet. He's been beaten by a young man who was unknown before the start of the Vuelta a España by the name now of Isidro Nozal.
Yep, and today is a big test for him, because he's still sat there. We haven't seen him do anything at all. It's less than 9 kilometre banner down there, and the gap is 21 seconds now. The race versus Roberto Lyseka. At 8 kilometres to go, we shall be going uphill rather steeply. And so what we'll do is we'll take an early break so you can come back and watch all the action on the Pedera, and it looks to me as though it's just begun for Roberto Lyseka. We'll take a short break. Rejoin us for the action. And welcome back now as we're watching here. US Postal, they've just gone under the 8 kilometre banner. They're very, very close now to Roberto Lyseka. And it is going to be, I think, an attack now from Heras. They're building.
Well, look on the other side as well. Rasmussen was right there, the man who was the revelation of the Pyrenees. He's high up in the overall classification, wants to try and climb up to the podium if he can. There you can just see the orange jersey of Roberto Lyseka, not very much more than 25 metres in front of the main field. The bulk of the work right now is being done by Manuel Beltran, the teammate of Roberto Lyseka. They are all queuing up there. The orange jersey there is the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, and looking a bit further down, we're looking for the golden jersey, and there he is, just down on the left-hand side, still looking pretty comfortable, and they're going to have to do a lot if they want to crack this man here this afternoon.
He's looking under control at the minute. There's 25 riders left in this group, Bob, and quite clearly now Beltran doing the work for Heras, and then he's going to have to try. Rasmussen is poised and looking extremely dangerous there, number 167, and so too is Cardenas, and there goes the first acceleration.
Heras is going to have to follow these and match them. He's going to have to hit Nozal very hard. He has got plenty of help, and there's the catch of Lyseka. Rasmussen, Heras right on the wheel of Cardenas, as well as Luis Perez from the Cofidis team. Now we're going to have to see if Isidro Nozal can match these accelerations. He has the luxury of having 5 minutes advantage on Roberto Heras, and he can ride his own tempo all the way to the top, and you can see him there just at the bottom of the screen. This is the steepest part of the climb, and some of the riders are getting shelled off the back of the front group. That looks like Vladimir Obeli getting some damage into the legs, but Cardenas, you know he's going to attack all the way to the line, and it's Heras now that has to make the attacks, and Nozal tacked on right behind there in the perfect position to defend his jersey.
Well, Cardenas has gone again. He's not waiting for anybody. He's not too worried about the fighting for the overall classification. He wants to win here. Climbers want to win at the summits of mountains like this one, and this is becoming a very famous mountain. It's only the second time that the Vuelta a España has been here, but it already has built up quite a reputation. Lyseka just going off the back of the group there. Here you can see at the back are the men from the yellow jerseys group. Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano looked to be in a spot of bother there for a moment. The golden jerseys over there on the right-hand side, and he's moving very much to the front end of this group.
Well, Once's Gonzalez de Galdeano, 21, a little bit detached from his team leader at the minute. Remember, Gonzalez de Galdeano lost over 5 minutes on this climb last year, 7 kilometres to go. But I am not yet impressed by Roberto Heras. He hasn't found the strength to accelerate clear of his shadow.
Well, it's difficult nowadays at the level of the sport to come back and ride a big Grand Tour after he's done so much work for Lance Armstrong during the month of July in the Tour de France, and it's a very difficult order to try and do it again just a month and a half later. He's going to have to try and do something if he can, but I'm not sure that he does have it in his legs this afternoon. The man who's just cruising around at the front end of that peloton in the golden jersey, Isidro Nozal, is looking very comfortable. He doesn't even actually have to stay with Roberto Heras. He can just lose himself a certain amount of time, but not put himself into difficulty. This is Cuesta now having a go. Again, the pacemaking taken up behind by Manuel Beltran, immediately followed by his teammate Roberto Heras. The other revelation to me in this tour, Bob, has got to be Rasmussen, because he's all over the place.
Yes, absolutely. Michael Rasmussen closely marking the best men in the GC classification and who have been climbing so well throughout the Vuelta. Heras seems to be waiting there for the perfect moment, but Nozal has just covered everything perfectly. No panic at all throughout the Vuelta for Isidro Nozal. He was in the perfect position over the first climb of the day on the descent, and he's being cared for now by his teammates. He's right there. You can see the middle of the screen, right on the shoulder of Rasmussen, right on the wheel of his number one rival, Roberto Heras.
As Santos Gonzalez, last the Domina Vacanti team, hanging on, still has a high position. Race referee trying to keep things a little bit orderly there, but he's going to lose control if he's not careful. There's too many motorbikes near the riders, especially with these fearsome accelerations by the climbers, and then the others come back. There's no one big icon that can crack this field, Bob. That's the thing. That's the difference between this and the Tour de France.
Well, last year, if we recall Roberto Heras's performance on this climb, he went from just about the bottom where it was very steep with almost 8 kilometers to go and just continued throughout the climb to put time on his rivals. We're getting close to 5Ks to go, and he's still right in there with the current gold jersey of race leader, so doesn't seem to have the legs so far on this climb. He's going to have to do something very explosive in the last few kilometers. Beltran is still there, trying to weaken Nozal a little bit, but so far no cracks in the armor of Isidro Nozal.
I think what's more impressive is what Phil just said, is that there's such a large group together in this field here. This looked like Del Olmo having a go right now. He's trying to keep himself high up in the overall classification. He really has been quite a surprise in this year's bike race, and he is taking advantage now of the marking of the men who are in the top 10 in the overall classification. Del Olmo 18th at the start of today's stage.
Interesting little rider, this. He's got a lot of power in his body when he comes to the uphills, and good acceleration from him. There'll be no reaction to chase him down in particular. There's the road above his head right now, as it looks like a Cofidis rider has gone well. I don't think it's Perez, but I don't think it's Cuesta either, so we'll have a look when we get down there. Might be Atienza again. But there you can see how the road twists. And no, it is in fact Cuesta who's gone again. Now, he's looking very cool on the climbs just now.
Looking solid, chasing Del Olmo right now. Both of them chasing Cardenas, who said he wanted to win a mountain stage when he came into the Vuelta, one of the great climbers of cycling today, and now he really wants to win the Pandera. It's probably his last best chance to win a stage. We have one more huge mountain, the Sierra Nevada, but this one is really the steep, pure climber's climb, and it looks like the Once still having fantastic control over the peloton, and Isidro Nozal in the golden jersey perfectly placed right there in the front of the first line in the front group.
Well, if Roberto Heras wants to win the Vuelta a Espana for a second time, he really has to do something today, doesn't he, Bob? Because, yes, Sierra Nevada tomorrow or the day after tomorrow is a very difficult climb, but the gradient is the kind of gradient that will suit riders like Isidro Nozal. Roberto Heras, on his form and on his day, really can take advantage of the very steep climbs where a climber can accelerate, put in an unbelievable acceleration, but he doesn't seem to have it right now, and I wonder if, having done a brilliant time trial a couple of days ago, if that's actually hurt his body a bit.
Well, just seeing how what the advantage is when you've got a strong team. These two riders on the front for Once are actually backing the pace off now to give Nozal as much respite as possible. This is not going the way of a rider like Roberto Heras. He's got to lift the pace because they're never going to beat this rider if they allow him time to recover on a climb like this.
Well, I'm so surprised to see such a huge group still very much together, but this man doesn't worry about any of that. He's flown the coupe. He's on his own at the moment, and I think his advantages are still hovering at around about 30 seconds. Felix Cardenas, a stage winner in the Tour de France, and in fact this year second overall in the Tour of Colombia, which is a very difficult stage race to ride, and it really is a race that his specialist climbers need to do well in. 5 kilometers to go to the finish, and it looked as if the US Postal Boys were trying to turn up the screws again.
This is where they've got to do it now. They're running out of time here to gain time. I think already Nozal has done enough to confirm he will lead this race for a 12th day. Because they've only got 5 kilometers to crack him now, and they're never going to get 5 and 6 minutes out of him in those last 5 kilometers. So he's done enough now, and he's not been extended yet. He's made no effort whatsoever. And watch out too from Michael Rasmussen. We'll just take another short break. Rejoin us for the Battle of the Pandera. And welcome back as we pass under the 4 kilometers to go banner. Felix Cardenas is still clear, beginning to look like a winner now, but at last Roberto Heras is about to test the yellow jersey.
Well, he's gone out on the attack, and he's seen the yellow jerseys having a spot to bother. This is Del Olmo. He was in between the two. The man who actually started the acceleration here was Michael Rasmussen, but he seems to have been blown away right now. This is the chaos at the top of one of these big mountains in the Tour of Spain. For the moment, Roberto Heras has put the yellow jersey into difficulty, but he's not really going to open the time gaps that he thought he would do. Those motorbikes really need to get out of the way right now because they're slightly falsifying the race. There's the yellow jersey. He's got to survive right now. He's just got to get himself into some kind of rhythm and just make sure he doesn't lose too much time.
I think he's in trouble. That's the first time we've seen Nozal in difficulty. Remember, this is a much steeper climb than we've seen in the previous Pyrenean climbs. He is actually riding sensible, Bob. He knows he can limit his losses here. He's not going to lose the Tour today.
Well, Heras opened up a big gap there, waited to the very steepest part of this climb, 4Ks to go. You can see that he's not panicked. He's still steady. He's got a solid rhythm going, but Heras is flying up the mountain right now. He caught Del Olmo like no problem at all. De Galdiano, they're further back down the mountain with Tricky Beltran. They're chasing with Luis Perez, but as we go further up the road, in a while we'll get to Roberto Heras, who's now put in a major acceleration. Only Mercado being able to match that from the front group. He blew away Rasmussen immediately, and we'll see what kind of damage that Heras can do, and if this man, Isidro Nozal, can limit the damage. Now, he seems to be riding a very good race, so he has 5 minutes in hand, and Heras is trying his best to put in as much time as possible from here on to the finish.
This is where you need experience. This is where he needs a good man alongside him just to talk him through a crisis situation like this. It's not a major panic for him. He leads Roberto Heras by 5 minutes and 13 seconds. But what Roberto Heras could be doing today is moving himself up towards second place. He's only just outside of 2 minutes behind Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. There's the man who led, and just behind you can see Roberto Heras coming through the crowds, and he's closing the gap down very rapidly to Felix Cardenas. 14 seconds, but it's only 17 seconds back to Isidro Nozal, so he's still holding it fairly well.
He's not going to concede a lot, and he's riding sensibly because he was actually beginning to pull away from Santos Gonzalez there. Here he is now. Gonzalez recovered a little bit to hook up again with Nozal. We've come to know this guy over the last 2 weeks, and we know he will not give up without an extreme fight. He's got into the art of suffering. He knows he's got time on his side, and he's not going to make a fool of himself by making a huge effort and then blowing up and losing maybe a minute. He's just riding very, very sensible. He knows that the odds are that Heras will only take 40 seconds at the most as he jumps away from Osa. He's now heading up towards the leader, and this could be a repeat victory for Roberto Heras on the top, but it's not going to be a huge time gap, I don't think.
Well, I tell you what, the one thing you have to say about Roberto Heras, Bob, is he is an absolutely magical climber. He's not panicked at all. He's obviously not got the legs of great days here right now, but still he is proving once again he is one of the greatest climbers in the world. This is a very difficult climb as we go inside 3 kilometers to go right now. We're looking here at gradients of approaching 15%, and Heras now back in control in the mountains.
Cardenas had 36 seconds lead with just 5 kilometers to go, and Roberto Heras wiped that out after his accelerations with, I think it only took him about 800 meters to close a 36-second gap onto one of the best climbers in the world. So here's Alejandro Valverde a little bit further down. They've caught up to Unai,
yeah.
And Sevilla there, still with good legs, pacing his teammate Valverde. They're closing in on Cardenas, or trying to close in on Cardenas, and Roberto Heras is going away. Here's a couple of Domina Vacanze riders, and you can see that Once rider, we haven't seen De Galdiano for a while, and it looks like they're passing up the race leader, and Isidro Nozal now in some big trouble. Now the gap is widening up. It's 35 seconds right now.
And that's just tagged onto the back of a very select group who have now come past Isidro Nozal, having seen he's in trouble. And he might recover. He needs a second deep breath right now, because this is on the steep part of the climb. Now, Cardenas has not thrown in the towel here. He's hooked up with Roberto Heras. Has he got the legs to answer yet another fierce acceleration coming from this little Spanish rider, who is an absolutely brilliant climber? He's got all the body weight. 136 pounds is all he weighs, and that is a great advantage on a mountain like this. You switch to somebody like Nozal, you can see, I think both his feet probably weigh 136 pounds.
He wears size 12 shoes anyways. A very big bike rider, but he's using all of his courage right now. He's losing time, but he mustn't lose faith, because it doesn't matter. He's 5 minutes ahead of Roberto Heras at the start of the day. He's riding himself back in, and he's only actually got about a kilometre and a half left. A very difficult climb, because it actually levels out and actually goes slightly downhill before the summit finish here.
Marco Serrano there, the other Once rider, has seen the trouble that Nozal is in, caught back up to him, and now is trying to pace him back into that little group with Tricky Beltran.
There's Valverde. In fact, he's closing in on Roberto Heras with Oscar Sevilla, so he's doing a brilliant ride. 23 years of age. Let's not forget, I think it was Phil that said earlier on he thought that Valverde was going to win at the top of this stage. I thought he was joking.
Well, I was. Well, we're getting up to the dizzy height of 1,800 metres above sea level right now. Here is Valverde. This is the benefit, Bob, of having a strong teammate like Sevilla to help you when you need him.
Well, absolutely. Kelme looking for a stage win here, looking for Valverde to get some more time. He lost a lot of time on the flat time trial. He is a climber, and Nozal now is getting close to 1 minute. That magical barrier we thought he needed about a minute and a half is starting to become a reality. Nozal turning himself inside out, hauling those size 12 boots up this mountain, trying to limit the damage to one of the greatest climbers in the world. This is a steep part, and look at him suffering there on the wheel of his teammate. On the other hand, you have Roberto Heras absolutely flying up the mountain, a real magician of the pedals in the dizzying heights of the mountains. Going up, each pedal stroke, Roberto Heras is getting another couple of tenths of a second.
Got to go back to what Johan Brunel said. He felt that Roberto Heras could get himself about 1.5 minutes on a stage like this. Johan Brunel really seems to know his bike riders intimately, just the knowledge of exactly what they've got in their bodies and exactly what they've got in their legs at that moment in time. We're up to around about the 1 minute mark. It's going to bring Roberto Heras up to 4 minutes behind. It's still a huge deficit, but if you can do something like this again in a couple of days' time on the Sierra Nevada, this bike race is far from over.
And the time trial to follow, of course, which is a mountain time trial this year.
11 kilometres uphill, that time trial on the day before the race finishes in Madrid. And look at that big gap now down the road there. You can't see anybody else coming round there. We're going further back, and one man who I've not seen for too long either is Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano.
Yeah, he's in this group here, and he's the man, of course, that Heras now is aiming at, because he's looking at second place first of all, then he'll look at first, and he's probably taking 2 minutes out of him here.
Well, this is the big thing for Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano to do right now. He needs to look after his teammates. He's the man with the experience. He's got to nurture this young man. He's got to encourage him. He's got to coax him over the next kilometre or so, just to make sure he doesn't panic, because if his mind goes, he'll find himself losing 2 or 3 minutes, but his teammate will be uttering small words of encouragement just to keep him in contact, to stop him from cracking psychologically in these last couple of kilometres.
Well, if he concedes just over a minute here, Bob, and he loses a minute on the Sierra Nevada, another minute in the time trial, he'll still win the race.
Absolutely, and that's what Once is doing right now. Serrano and De Galdiano doing everything they can with their experience to help Nozal be calm, collect himself, limit the damage to these two men who are working very well together. I think that Heras will get some time, and Cardenas has the advantage now of not worrying about GC. He can sit on the wheel of Roberto Heras and get him in the sprint for the stage. Both of those riders stand to gain gained quite a bit today, and this man is trying desperately to stay on the wheel of his teammate, and it's now De Galdiano who's doing such a good job for his team leader at the moment, the golden jersey of Isidro Nozal.
This is what they say in the sport of cycling, Phil. This is a Grand Seigneur. What Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano is doing right now is what Aitor Gonzalez and Oscar Sevilla could not do last year. He's making sacrifices. He could actually lose his second place in the overall classification, but he wants his teammate to win, which is why he's staying there with him and encouraging him over these final difficult kilometres.
Well, it's all over near enough now. Now to question Heras, really has got to think about winning, and being the only man ever to have won at the top of this climb, he still wants time. He's going to have to carry on. Cardenas was really upset when he lost the big climb into Andorra on the Envalira there. He'd like to make his name on this climb, and he'll sit here and try to jump Heras as they approach the line, while Roberto must race all of the way to the line and gain every second, because it could be crucial now. Back to Oscar Sevilla, doing relentless pacemaking here for Alejandro Valverde. Valverde also suffering a little bit, but gaining time as well over a lot of his rivals. Gonzalez Galdiano, I hadn't realised he was riding alongside the golden jersey until we just seen him down there, so he's not losing as much time as I thought, and it looks like at the end of the day, Paul, times will change. Valverde now has done and says thanks a lot, Oscar. He's going to go, or I'm not so sure he is actually.
It hurts this climb. It's very deceptive. You think you've come to the flatter part of the course, and watch out for the experience of Oscar Sevilla, because he's been here, he's been to the Tour de France, he's been to this race on many occasions. I think there was a bit of youthful enthusiasm there, because so. Valverde thought he was going to leap across a 10-second gap to two of the greatest climbers in the world, and you don't do that quite that easily, especially when you're only 23 years of age.
Well, this man who has become from the team domestique to the protected rider has now got two very famous Once riders nursing him up this climb. It's 1 kilometre to go for Heras and Cardenas, but that'll be a lovely sign when the race leader gets to it.
We'll have to see how much time he's lost. He's done a great job. He's been well cared for by his teammates, both Serrano and De Galdiano, who, like you said, Paul, is in danger of losing even more time, for his second place is a lot more tenuous than Nozal's. But now finally we see Once throwing all of their resources at the man most capable of winning this Vuelta a Espana, Isidro Nozal.
Well, they should have done it a few days ago. They should have done it a week ago to look after this man, keep him protected, but maybe they weren't quite sure how he was going to perform. The two leaders now, the slight downhill, and it's going to be a very tricky finish. You can see Valverde there just in company still with Oscar Sevilla. The flatter partner, it kicks up just slightly up towards the finish line. It's going to be a very strange sprint finish, supposedly at the top of a mountain.
Well, Cardenas wants this, and he's going to try and get it now. Heras has moved him up into first place. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because Roberto is a real fighter. He's a real scrapper when it comes to a finish like this, and I think he still might have it in those legs. Felix Cardenas has made a mistake, I think, going up into the lead, because here comes the rush right over the top now, and right behind him, coming with a flyer, is Alejandro Valverde. What a finish this is going to be. Could be a real shock here. I don't think Cardenas knows yet as they hit this corner here, shoulder to shoulder. Well, I guess I was right at the end, because Valverde is going to take this from absolutely nowhere as he comes to the front. Now, Bob, he's pulled that one out of the blue.
He did the same thing up in Andorra, and he's come through again. Heras had no idea where he had came from. He looked over his shoulder and he said, "Who is this?" It was Alejandro Valverde getting the stage, well helped by his teammate Oscar Sevilla. Now let's count back down the mountain and see when the group of Nozal comes in. Here's the second group on the road. Nozal is not in there. He's a little bit further back, but he does have two of his teammates, and look at them chasing now. There is the Nozal group flaming down the mountain to the finish, and it's going to kick up a little bit. Here's a Rasmussen group led by Tricky Beltran.
So Beltran now, Santos Gonzalez going to have a little go there on the wheel of Michael Rasmussen, who was a star of one stage in the Pyrenees. He's still up in the mix here, Santos Gonzalez. So remember, he was up with the Nozal at one stage. Nozal fell away from that. It's a tricky old finish this if you don't get your sprinting right. Perez also going up on the inside. Now he's coming up towards the line, but Gonzalez is keeping his gears low, and he's just about going to win that one. So he'll go over, I think it's fifth place there for Gonzalez. The clock continues to count. This is crucial.
1 minute so far now. As definitely, as our friend Sean Yates would say, a very dodgy finish, and this should be, as we look at the winner there, it's a pity we pulled away, because there is the golden jersey coming in somewhere towards the back of this group, right on the wheel of Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. 1 minute and 14 seconds.
So that's right, minute 13, minute 14, the clock has stopped, so Nozal has conceded that to Roberto Heras today. It will not alter the top 4 riders in the overall classification. Valverde has won the stage. He'll increase his lead in that blue, well, he might get the lead in the blue jersey competition now, because he was only borrowing that blue jersey from this rider here, Isidro Nozal. Well, he's tired at the moment, but I bet deep down he's feeling pretty good, conceding something like 73 seconds today on the line. He is still very much the leader of the Vuelta Espana. We'll just take a break, come back and rejoin us. Has been brought to you by Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum. Captain was here. Yes, and that inspired finish by Alejandro Valverde means he's won the second big mountain stage of this year's Tour. Let's have a look at it again. There he is, coming up at very high speed, and I think Paulie's got to thank, really, his teammate Oscar Sevilla for getting him into this position.
He certainly has. He tried a couple of times to get across, and I wasn't sure he had the legs, but when he got into the last 300 metres, he made contact with the 2 leaders, and it's amazing to see such an incredible sprint, Bob, at the top of a mountain like that.
Gumby Boy came out of nowhere like a bolt of lightning from a clear blue sky, hit Heras and Cardenas when they weren't even expecting anybody to come up, and came up with a great stage win, his second for the Kelme team. Great ride by Alejandro Valverde.
And that was his 7th victory of the season. It's his 2nd season as a pro. He won no races last year, so he's having a wonderful 2nd season, isn't he? This is how he did. You just have a look at the faces of the other 2, because they don't know where this thunderbolt came from. He crashed his way through like a bulldozer, hit the front, and he hit them at exactly the right time. He was running on pure adrenaline here, and it was a very clear win for him, and I think it might give him that blue jersey for a while longer, because he's not been the leader in that competition. He's only been riding on loan from Nozal. Here he is, a very happy young man on top of a mountain top, as he was in Andorra quite a while ago now, taking the prizes of the day. I think we can have a look now at the stage results. Alexander Valverde and the Kelme boys. It's going to mean very happy reading again. He gets the victory. Same time, of course, as Cardenas. Heras sitting up and losing 2 seconds in the sprint. Oscar Sevilla, he punched the sky as well. It was a moral victory for him. He crossed the line in 4th place. And Miguel Perdiguero, they're saying, was there in 5th. Perez in 6th place. Rasmussen doing very well again in the mountain top, finish 7th. Tricky Beltran coming in 8th. The top 10 there completed by Unai Osa. Looking a bit further down, Mancebo finished 11th. It'll probably cost him a place in the overall classification though. Scarponi in 12th, and right down to the 15th place man, significant, that is this man here, Isidro Nozal. He conceded just over 70 seconds of his lead to Roberto Heras. Let's have a look at that now. It reflects here in the Pacific Life overall classification. Still in 2nd place, same time, because they finished together, is his teammate Galdiano. Heras closes in, but he's still at 4 minutes and 2 seconds. Time very definitely running out for Roberto here. Beltran holds 4th. Alejandro Valverde now completes our top 5 with his win today at 6:37. Mancebo does indeed drop down 1 place to 6th. Rasmussen still there. All of these names still here. Santos Gonzalez there in 10th, and I think you'll find he actually finished in the results as well. There he is. I think it's a smile. It's always hard to tell, but this young man feeling extremely tired after his climb up. But later on, I think he'll feel a very happy man. It's a big day he can now put behind him. We saw the sprint of Eric Zabel down at the bottom of the climb today in Jaén, and as a result of that, those 4 points were indeed important. It's given him the polka dot jersey back over Alessandro Bertacchi on the eve of their 2nd rest day. Valverde there in 3rd place. Right, well, when we rejoin the action on Tuesday, this is where we're going. And again, another big day for the man in yellow, but he keeps knocking them off and doing well, doesn't he? The longest climb of any of the 3 Grand Tours will take us to the top of the Sierra Nevada. We'll be back with you, and we'll start our live weekly coverage 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time as we go on a 162-kilometre ride to the very top of the Sierra Nevada. Hope you're enjoying the coverage. We'll see you again Tuesday. For Paul Sherwen, Bob Roll, I'm Phil Liggett saying, until Tuesday, goodbye.